Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're zeroing in on a particular moment. Chandrababu Naidu's first year back as Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh wraps up today, June 4th, 2025.
That's right.
We've got a set of sources here, and we're going to try and unpack what they tell us about this past year.
Exactly. The mission really is to pull out the key themes from these materials. What were the main changes, the big initiatives, and what kind of future vision is emerging.
Okay, so let's start where the sources seem to begin. It looks like the immediate focus was very much on relief measures, right?
Yes, the sources are quite explicit about that. A lot of energy in this first year, according to the material, went into getting welfare schemes up and running fast.
Like fulfilling campaign promises.
Precisely. Things like increased social pensions, bringing back the Anna canteens for, those subsidized meals.
Yep.
And there are also plans moving forward, mentioned in the sources, for free bus travel for women, financial help for farmers, women's self-help groups too. It seems like a real push to establish that social safety net quickly.
Right, get that baseline support in place. But then the sources suggest a pretty quick shift in gears, moving towards much bigger things, infrastructure, economic development.
Yeah, that transition seems quite marked in the materials we have. There's a definite renewed energy behind some really significant projects that had stalled.
Like Amaravati.
Amaravati, exactly, the capital city project. The sources highlight a big push to actively find substantial funding to really get that moving again.
What about Polavaram? That huge irrigation project feels like it's been talked about forever.
It has, and it's very much back in focus, according to these sources. They even mention a pretty ambitious completion target, December 2027.
Wow.
Yeah, and the sources really stress how vital Polavaram is for irrigation for agriculture across the state. It's framed as, foundational.
Okay, foundational. Now, this is where, for me, the sources get really interesting. They describe an incredibly ambitious long-term plan. Lots of focus on industry and tech.
Absolutely. If you piece it together from the different sources, it describes a really proactive effort to attract investment. Domestic, foreign, both.
Not just any investment, though.
No, it seems targeted, IT, manufacturing, sure, but also defense. And maybe the most eye-catching bit is the plan mentioned to create India's first quantum valley in Amaravati.
A quantum valley.
Yeah, the idea presented is collaborating with global tech players to build this hub for advanced computing. It's quite a leap.
That does sound like a leapfrog strategy. What else?
Well, the sources also talk about really leveraging that long coastline. The plan mentioned is for a port or a fishing harbor, like every 50 kilometers or so, and fostering a shipbuilding cluster there too. And interestingly, this tech focus isn't just external, it's about governance itself.
How so?
The sources mention things like AI-driven governance using AI tools to make government operations smoother and building a statewide data lake, centralizing data for, better analysis, better decisions.
Okay, so massive vision, very tech-heavy. But surely the sources mention the challenges. I mean, the cost of all this. Balancing these huge projects with the welfare stuff.
They do touch on that. The scale of the funding needed, how to balance welfare spending with these, massive development goals, it raises questions.
Right.
But the material also points to Naidu's past record, mentioning HI Tech City in Hyderabad, suggesting perhaps a methodical approach despite the hurdles. What comes through consistently is this very clear long-term strategy.
With some pretty big numbers attached.
Very big. The sources mention targets like a 15% economic growth rate and aiming for $42,000 per capita income by 2047. It's presented as a bold path forward. So if we step back, the picture painted by these sources is, it's a year starting with immediate social support, then quickly pivoting to restart major infrastructure, and finally laying out this extremely ambitious, tech-focused economic blueprint for the long haul.
It's definitely a compelling picture presented in these materials. So thinking about everything we've discussed, based purely on these sources, this huge ambition, the massive projects needing serious cash, maybe something for you, the listener, to think about is this. How might the state actually juggle funding these future-shaping initiatives while also keeping up those vital immediate welfare programs they've put in place? It's quite the balancing act described here.